Something that I constantly see people struggling for or asking about is credits and how to farm them quickly. Credits are one of the most pointless resources in this game, and it is purely there to add extra grind to every step of everything you want to build or do. And we all know that grind is content, right? Right? Yeah, I thought so. Well, being able to get a large backlog of credits so you can avoid getting stuck in this lovely cycle, or having to wait for that gear or item after working hard to farm it is incredibly helpful. Now, unfortunately, there are only two main efficient credit farms within Warframe, because you know variety doesn't exist, I suppose. Today we are going to discuss these two farms, how to do them efficiently, and hopefully get you set up so you can avoid farming this more in the future, because that's the goal. Farm so we don't need a farm. Before we start going into either of the farms, plain and simple, having a credit booster obviously is going to massively increase the amount of credits you're going to get, and this in turn is going to reduce the amount of time that you have to farm. So get one if you can, and if you can't, then get to begging. It's a surefire way to make friends, I promise. I wouldn't lie. Begging is great, right? Nah, but for real, if you're struggling for plat, don't forget we have a plat guide as well as a relic guide, which talks all about using relics to make platinum. The links to these videos will both be in the description. A month-long credit booster only costs 200 plat, and you could honestly get that in less than an hour, so if you really want to make those farms as efficient as possible, I would suggest getting one of those. If that's not possible, not to worry. These farms will still be of great use to you, and hopefully we can teach you a couple of things along the way. For those that are new to the channel or are enjoying these guides and videos, please consider subscribing. Only a small portion of people who watch my videos are subscribed. It takes no time at all, massively helps me out, and you can always unsubscribe later. Now the first farm is one that practically everyone does. It's the good old index farm. Once you have completed the Glass Gambit questline, you will unlock the ability to compete in the index whenever you would like. There are 3 tiers of index, low, medium, and high. However, 99% of the time, unless you really struggle, you should be doing the high tier when using this to farm credits. On screen we have a photo showing the difference of what you will earn depending on the difficulty. Doing the high tier is the only one that is truly worth your time doing, as you can see. The general gameplay loop of Index is simple. You look around for enemies, kill them, and collect their points that they drop in the form of these green crystals. You then hand these points into your scoring zone, and boom, you've scored some points. You do this while preventing the enemy from scoring on you, but honestly, unless you're really going to a super high level, that's not too much of an issue. If you hold on to points, you can get a bonus depending on how many points you are holding at once. Bear in mind that holding more points starts debuffing and making you easier to kill, but will reward you with a bigger bonus. If you're comfortable with a weaker frame, it's always better to go for the bonus, to make the rounds go just that little bit faster. Now most people go for the max bonus, however that is actually technically not the fastest. On screen here you can see a little infographic on how efficient each bonus is depending on how many are held. It is usually most efficient in this case to hand in your points at 15 points held, since only 2 additional bonus points are added by collecting 20 total. Once you have filled the amount of points required for a round, which in high tier is 100, boom, you've made profit. The game then asks if you would want to stay, remembering that if you then fail, you lose what you just won. However, if you have decent gear, it is normally a really good idea to stay for 2 rounds normally, or 3 if you're really comfortable. Then leave and reload up the mission if you want to farm more. As for how to go about the actual farm itself, there are a lot of different builds, strats, and ways people farm the index, and generally, if you're only going to round 3, there isn't too much of a difference in these strats. If you have multiple people, you generally want to have one person who is a dedicated carrier with a tank frame. And that means all they do is pick up the points so you can get the bonus quickly. For this frame you want someone who has a way to completely avoid damage, something like Rhino, Revenant, or Limbo, as the debuffs from hoarding points make even Anaris' max health look like a baby with HP. Everyone else plays DPS frames who quickly cut down the enemy so the carrier can pick up the points and hand them in. Everyone has their own variants on the strat. Me personally, if I'm running solo, I run as a Rhino carrier with a good melee and chill. If I'm in a squad, I run Rhino as the carrier with Mesa as the DPS frames. Mesa clears out the enemies incredibly quickly. I'll link the builds for both Mesa and Rhino in the description below. Now of course there are other strats. Wisp, Wukong, Umbral Excal, lots of different ways that you can try. It's best to try what works best for you and what you enjoy, as it's a very tedious farm. Obviously 3 DPS and 1 carrier is the most efficient, however you can still do it with just 2 people or even solo, just at a slower rate. And if you don't want to try your own things, you can always go with the Rhino and Mesa strat, which is what I personally use. Placing on mesas covering slightly different areas to quickly kill enemies and then mark the point with waypoints is best. For solo, running a Rhino with any good melee and making sure your iron skin is up is the way to go, replacing your iron skin anytime it gets low. Another thing I want to mention for Index is that boosters do affect the rewards here, so getting a credit booster is definitely a good idea if possible. Now the main way to get credits, and the way I personally suggest to do it, is Profit Taker, or PT as most people call it. Although it is much harder to get all the prereqs done, all the builds, gear, and practically everything including the fight is a little bit harder. It ends up being worth it in terms of efficiency if you can do the fight well. Now I'm not going to go into too much details of the fight itself, as we have a PT guide specifically planned to go into the little bits of that, so keep your eyes open for that soon. Instead, I'm going to simply state the requirements and generalized gear that you will need for this. To be able to fight the PT, first of all you need to be rank 5 in Fortuna standing, as in the highest rank within the Fortuna people. And then you need to have completed the PT questline, as the final mission of that small questline is the PT fight. And when you want to fight it again, you simply have to redo the final mission. The gear for fighting it is as follows. A Chroma, as Chroma has an effigy which allows you to double your credits. You then want to run a Zenith if you can, if not you can always use a Battercore. For a secondary you want a Kuvan-Yukor, and for melee all you want is any Zor with the Contagion Arcane on it. All those builds will be in the upcoming PT video, as well as an explanation on why the builds and choices are the way they are. However, if you want to get started right away, I will also place the builds for this in the description of this video. The focus of this video is mainly on the credit side of things, so we're going to discuss why I believe PT is so incredibly good for credit farming over Index, as well as talk about what is needed to achieve these high credit numbers. So base credits for a single PT run are 125k, which already ain't too bad if you do it fast. However, you can get even more, and I mean way more. Chroma's 4th ability, Effigy, has an effect of doubling credits dropped within the range of the ability. So using a Chroma correctly would make that 125k go to 250k, which now matches what Index would be giving you per round if you remember what I showed you earlier. With Effigy, all you have to do is place down your 4th ability at the back legs of the PT and have it up and in range when the PT's death animation finishes, and it will double it for you. Now provided you kill the PT faster than you finish Index, at this point it's already more efficient to do PT over Index. If an Index round takes you 5 minutes and PT takes you 3 minutes, that's a lot of extra credits and time, and it adds up massively over a small period. Credit boosters also obviously can work, but not everyone can get them. Remembering that if you don't have enough plat to get one, we do have relic and plat guide videos linked in the description of this video. If you do have a credit booster, however, you're now getting 500,000 per run, which is fantastic. There are 3 other ways that credits from PT can be increased, but these come down to a lot of RNG and circumstances outside of your control. The first of these are cat buffs. The Smedikavad has a charm mod for an ability. This gives the cat a chance to charm. Charm has a 28% chance to proc every 27 seconds. There are a total of 6 different buffs that can occur if the cat does activate its charm ability. One of those buffs is double XP, credits, and resources, but obviously it doesn't proc super often. You can roughly expect it to buff about once every 10 minutes. However, it's still a nice bonus when it does occur. Even nicer is the fact that if you are super lucky, the cat's buff can actually stack, and can technically stack up to 5 times. Either way, the cat buff helps with increasing the efficiency, even if it only helps you out once every few runs. For the other 2 ways credits can increase, one is from the double credit weekend, which DE puts out every now and then, and the other is if the fissures in Fortuna get close to being completed. It actually gives Fortuna a double credits boost. Those final ones are a lot of luck and timing, but they aren't needed for it to be very profitable at all. Simply getting okay at the fight and using Effigy is more than enough to make it better than Index for most people. So for a fun little hypothetical, if you are running PT on a double credit weekend, and luckily at the same time Fortuna also got double credits from the fissures being almost completed. At the same time you're an absolute baller and you've bought yourself a double credits booster because you've got a big brain. Running through the mission you get lucky, and you get a cat buff, and then another, and it keeps going. The timing is perfect, and you get 5 cat buffs and the exact moment that you place that effigy down, and boom, the credits drop. To your shock, you see 64 million credits in your reward screen. Now, I've never seen this actually happen, but technically it is possible. And I mean that technically, because the chance of it is so tiny that I'm not sure if I believe that it's ever happened before. Now, I personally run a credit booster, so I normally get about 500k a run and occasionally get a cap buff to get a million on a run if I'm feeling lucky that day. But even 500k to a million per run is absolutely phenomenal and will save you tons of time with building parts and anything else that requires credits in Warframe. So there you go, you have your choices laid out for you. We all wish that there were other fun ways to farm out credits, which is still in my opinion completely pointless. But as yet, DE has not added any new ways to farm credits in a very long time. So I guess here's to hoping something special might happen sometime soon. If not, get used to running that lovely index over and over, or time to put in some high yards to smash out PT with the boys. For a couple of extra passive increases in credits, the Lector Secura gives bonus credits on enemies it kills, so if you have access to getting one, I'd highly suggest giving this a shot, as having that extra little passive boost might get you over the line with a couple of things that you need to build. And the other main bonus that you could use to passively increase your credits is the Chroma Effigy like we explained with the PT. So running either of these will passively create a small boost in your normal credit progress, so if you're really needing those extra credits, you could always try using these in your normal gameplay outside of credit farming too. I have put as much information as I could think of in this video. Obviously some of the PT stuff is missing because I feel like there is an absolute massive strats and stuff to talk about when discussing PT, and I would like to dedicate an entire video to doing so. This will hopefully come out not too far after this video. If it's super close, then I did a good job. If I didn't, then go ahead and yell at me in the comments. Either way, if you feel this didn't answer a question you wanted, or you had questions about what I have discussed, feel free to ask in the comments, over on the Discord, or even if you see me streaming on twitch.tv/robostealth. Hopefully I'll be able to answer whatever remaining questions you have there. I want to give a massive thanks to everyone that has been supporting the channel. This video will be the first one that I will be releasing after hitting our big 1k sub goal, which is absolutely crazy, and I want to say a massive thank you. It genuinely means a lot, and I can't believe how quickly this community is growing. I'll be doing a special giveaway over on the Discord in the coming weeks, so keep your eyes out for that. Much love to you all, and Robo out.